Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Sheila Zilinsky Show for this Thursday, May 31st, 2018 edition. So glad you could join me on the program today. What a great show this is. I wanted to have Chris Taylor and Rory Brown back from Don't Let Them Burn Ministries to talk about a show that I saw very recently. Of course, you guys know I did Gods in Spandex. I also have that link below if you did not see that. That is a really good expose. You know, I've been keeping an eye on Marvel with three sons who all have read a lot of comic books. And I think this is really going to bless some people today because this is really important for us to know. So it's not just Marvel occult, but there's a much deeper message here, and I'm really looking forward to this, and I think you're going to be very blessed by it. Listen, very quickly, tomorrow is the official website launch date. We kind of missed May, but June 1st is the official launch. Go to www.sheila.media and check out the new site. Let me know how you like it. It's very user-friendly. It loads fast, and all in all, I'm really very happy with the new site. We're just fixing a couple little random order podcasts. For some reason, one is coming up that's a bit of an older podcast. We're working on that, but no reason to not launch. I thought, you know what? We've waited long enough. So go to www.sheila.media. Well, I want to jump right into the program. It is, again, Chris Taylor and Rory Brown, and they're going to join me on Avengers Infinity War, and it's going to be a really good show. Chris and Rory, welcome to the program, fellas. Great to have you back on.
Glad to be back on.
Great to have you guys both back on. Well, listen, we're going to get into this new show. It's not even out on DVD yet. In fact, it's still in some theaters. I know it's still playing at my local theater, and it is kind of the blockbuster of 2018. It is called Avengers Infinity War. We're going to get into this because, you know, here's the shocking thing, fellas. It isn't even hidden anymore. We used to say hidden in plain sight. Yeah, exactly. It's so overt and in your face now that it really is shocking. So listen, let's get into it. I'm going to hand you guys a mic and then I'll just throw my comments in wherever.
All right. Okay. Well, you know, this whole Marvel Cinematic Universe has been building up for over 10 years. Well, about 10 years or so. And this whole thing, it's always been about a conquest for these Infinity Stones. And so this is just the culmination of all that. And what you're going to see laid out here is you're going to see the mystical elements, the spiritual elements, the allegorical elements that tie back to what we would call God, or the ascension of somebody that's trying to become God. Roy?
Yes, like you said before, movies chock full with a lot of new age pieces that are in there that we're going to discuss tonight. It's just chock full of things that people will be shocked that they might have overlooked in watching this movie.
But yes, and you know, this whole thing, it's a culmination of different ideologies and characters. We have demigods, we have Norse gods, we have transhumanism, we have people that have been sort of, like Spider-Man is bitten by an insect and turned into a superhuman, which from some other experiment. So we have a lot of this evolutionary concept that's riddled throughout all these movies.
Yes.
And that's one of the, I would say, the tentpole or the anchor to a lot of these comic books and comic book movies.
Chris, we also have magic, witchcraft that's put in place as the norm, and people are using sources of power. I'm just going to leave it like that because we're going to talk about it. Different sources of power to do things, which we'll get into more.
Yeah. So there's a comic book out. It costs you about $15 to get. So Avengers Infinity War Prelude. And it gives some of the points from the previous movies that they tie up a couple of loose ends dealing with the stones. Some of the people, like Scarlet Witch, her origin is different in this comic book or in the cinematic universe. She gets her power from the Mind Stone or the Reality Stone. The Nazi agents from Hydra use that to bring out her evolutionary power, and also the one called Silver Surfer. They were first introduced in Age of Ultron. So here we see they're using this power that no one knows where it comes from. No one knows all the true abilities, especially for the Soul Stone. Its power is unknown. So this is what the Mad Titan Thanos is after, and has been after for a while now, since the beginning. And we see that Loki had one of these stones. It's called a Mind Stone. And they wielded other stones. Dr. Strange had the Time Stone. And so you're going to hear about these stones and what they really represent in the occult, at least the ideologies of them. And so as you go through this Prelude comic, you'll see all sorts of wars going on around the universe. But one thing you'll notice is when it comes to Thanos' story, and make no mistake, this is Thanos' movie, just like the Infinity Gauntlet was a Thanos comic. And they don't use all the elements from the original comic, but they take different elements from different large storylines that they have within the Marvel Universe. And in this one, Thanos, he dies and goes to hell. And he's met by Mephisto, who is a representation of the devil. You see, the devil wants to use Thanos as an agent because his power has been lessened for some reason. And then Thanos' future self, before Mephisto decides that Thanos is not relevant to his cause anymore, his future self comes in and he already has this Infinity Gauntlet. And he tells Thanos about himself, and this Thanos is so evil he tries to even fight his future self. And then after that, they come to a reconcile, and then Thanos' future self, an avatar, it's not really him, it's an avatar of him sent by Thanos. And he takes this Thanos, which is in hell, and shows him parts of what's going to happen in the future so he could prepare himself, but he won't be able to remember. It will only be in his subconscious. So this is one of the links that's not in the movie, but it ties directly to the movie. Any words?
Well, let me just throw this in here, because what's amazing to me, and I think you guys obviously know this, but, you know, when you look at these movies, every single movie now, every single one of them, you know, they have these black cubes of Saturn, and then they get into the Aleister Crowley ties in all the time. You've got the symbol of Harpocrates in this, the vow of silence. Aleister Crowley, actually, I read a book where he was talking about the vow of silence. And then what was really interesting, kind of right off the hopper in this movie, not surprising, Doctor Strange, he's looking out and he sees this craft, and it's an Ouroboros. I mean, that is absolutely the infinite circle of death. So these occultists are we always see this geriatric and the Goita and the Egyptian Kemet, Kabbalism, the ancient mystery schools. You know, a lot of this is Hermeticism and Gnosticism, and Ariosophy was just a spin-off of Theosophy. It's amazing how all this mishmash is embedded in these Marvel movies.
Correct. Great observation about the flying donut, the Ouroboros there. Most people wouldn't have caught that. Go ahead, Rory.
It's woven into the movies so well placed that people will go and look at these things and not see any of these.
Right. And that's because a lot of people just aren't trained in these aspects of the occult and witchcraft and things. And rightfully so, most people don't want to look into those dark parts. But it's critical to understand some elements. And it's not even directly tied to, let's say, the directors, even though they play a part. But it's about the people who created these characters, the Jack Kirbys and the Stan Lees and, you know, some other comic book writers too. But let's get to this movie now.
One of the things that we talked about prior to this, we looked at, I remember probably about 6 or 8 months ago, we were talking about this young man, and you'll remember, that went to the Far East, and he's a comic book writer, and he wanted to have an out-of-body experience. And he was talking about the experience that he had. And the experience was that he was getting high for a number of days, and he was able to open himself to the elements, or I won't say the elements, I would say to the spirits. And they came on one particular day, he said, and he said he was not even high. And they downloaded or gave him a comic. Am I correct, Chris? Where he was able to write this information. So it's not far-fetched when you say you see all of these things that are woven into a movie, because the writers themselves have opened themselves up, like Chris was saying earlier, about all these different things that are woven into these movies. And what's happening is that very young kids are being exposed to this, and it's being channeled into their system. And you know what? These things will lay dormant and they will not even know, but they've been exposed to the dark side.
The comic book writer that you're talking about is Grant Morrison.
Yeah.
Very highly into the cult and all these weird chaos magic. But we're going to get to that in a minute. So this movie opens up is Avengers Infinity War for the people that don't know. They're on an Asgardian ship that connects to Thor's movie. And basically what you see is that Thanos has come to get one of the stones. It's the stone that Loki took from the Asgardian temple. And so anyway, he gets into a battle with the Hulk and everything like that, whatever. But he goes on this speak with Loki talking about destiny. And you could run from it, you could hide, whatever. And then he says, I am. And that's very significant because basically right there, he's telling you that he's like God or he is God or whatever, whichever way you want to take that allegory, because this is about ascension. This is about trying to become omnipotent. And that's what happens in the original comics. And now he's not truly omnipotent, but we'll get to that. So anyway, he's not the first person in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to allude to godhood. When Ultron was created, he was created from 5 different personalities, and this is explained into the movies too. He's Ultron, Jarvis, Bruce Banner, Tony Stark, and he's also the Infinity Stone. It's 5 different personalities. But when he became Ultron, they asked him, what is he? And he says, I'm not Ultron, I'm not Jarvis, I am. So remember, these movies are about the new gods, the gods that we look up to come and save us. And Ultron himself alluded to being a god also, because he's an artificial intelligence. He has gained ascension and all these things. He's self-aware, and he wants to eliminate the parasite called humanity. So you'll see this theme running in these movies from the villains about annihilation, about depopulation, and all these things. So Thanos wants to get rid of half of the universe.
The thing that's most interesting in this movie is Agenda 21. It comes out clearly. Yeah. And who's putting it forward? Thanos. And he started in saying, hey, this is what we must do. It has to come to this. I have to depopulate because things are going array. So I was shocked when and he's a so-called villain, saying that, we have to do this. And he gives a reason in the movie. He talked about his own planet and the plan that he proposed, and that they would not listen to him. And now, he said, now look at what it has become. But if they had listened to me, it would have been paradise.
Yeah, for a minute there, I thought maybe Thanos was the new Secretary General of the United Nations.
I knew you would bring that up because I was going to bring it up eventually. Yeah, it's so true. All the mandates coming out from the United Nations is about population control.
Yes, it's being put into people's subconscious.
Bingo.
It's been planted there. It's being planted there. So, I mean, listen, we have to do this. And you will see that people more than likely buy into it. It is being planted in a subtle way in people's minds.
Yeah, and what you'll see also in part of the movie is Gamora, which we'll talk about later, what happens to her. On her home planet where Thanos adopts her as a daughter, the first thing he gives her is a weapon. So he has intent for her. And then he shields her face from the slaughter about to happen to her people, which they had to separate who will live and who will die. That's the Nazi tactic right there. This stuff is just deep rooted in some stuff that went on in history. But the average audience is not going to see this stuff.
No, and it's so unfortunate that from what I saw, I have never seen such a movie with so chock full with so many different elements in it. I'm trying not to jump ahead, but so many different elements. Like Sheila said earlier, the occultic elements are there. Humanity is now standing up through Tony Stark. All these things, and you see Thanos and says, "Man, listen, you have done very well with what you have been able to accomplish, basically with what you have for a regular human. This is outstanding." So there's so many things that are neatly packaged in there that you need to listen to every word, because nothing is just happening just for happenstance.
Oh yeah, correct. And this is a humanistic movie. That's what it's about. It's about humans using their own power to stop an alien force or someone that seems like God, or all these things, and humanity can do it without outside help, in other words. So let's talk about some of the characters here. We have Star-Lord, who is a demigod, basically, born from a celestial being and a human. We have Thor, that's the Norse god. He is a lesser god. You have Spider-Man, who's, again, half spider, half human, with superhuman powers, and Iron Man gives him the Iron Spider suit. You have Tony Stark, who is the technocrat, who has nanoparticles in his body that creates the new suit that he has. So he is a poster child for transhumanism, right? And all the kids are going to look at this as cool. Ooh, look, he can form a gun with it out of thin air. He could do a shield, or place his feet into the ground so he could hold his footing. All these miraculous things he could do through technocratic transhumanists. And then we have Scarlet Witch, which the name should tell you exactly what she's wielding, the power of the Force. You have Black Panther, who's a shaman. You have Doctor Strange, that's a wizard. So you have all the occult elements and technocratic elements in there to push you forward to the agenda of the future. But let's talk about the Force for a second.
And before you go on, we just sort of laid it all out right there about the power source. I'm just going to say the power source that's being harnessed, that no one is turning to a god to save them. And we say, it's Marvel, but no, they have looked within themselves, and we learn that Black Panther, he's a shaman, and he has his power source, that he's able to use. He goes and he talks to the dead. Necromancy is involved in the previous movie, and now one of the things that we are seeing, we're able to travel on different planes, which we're going to talk about too. Spider-Man, he also has nanotechnology as a part of his suit, because now he's totally different. You reference Iron Man, and now we look at Spider-Man, this young man who is being initiated into the Avengers, so to speak, this club of elite guys. Doctor Strange, he has such a power source, and we know why, because of one of these stones that he has. But he's able to do things, go into different realms. Just they're showing you that, what? When you go to the dark side, there is power there, but not the power of Jesus Christ that can set you free. And that's the difference.
I'm going to throw this in there because notice the very mocky way they mentioned Jesus in the one scene too, right?
Yeah, I was gonna get to that in a minute. Yeah. Give me a second before I go there, because I want to take that and go somewhere else with it too.
Hey, Chris and Rory, I don't know if you noticed this, but it was really interesting that it was called the Soul Stone, and Thanos gave his daughter as a human sacrifice for the stone. And what was crazy though is her name is like, there's Sodom and there's Gomorrah. I thought that was interesting.
Yeah, good catch. Yeah.
Oh my goodness, you're all right. Go ahead, Chris. Go ahead. I'll let you go.
She just traveling all through my notes. Yeah, but so we have also, speaking of the characters, we have the Hulk. The Hulk is a demonic force within inside Bruce Banner. Most people are going to disagree, but go look at where Stanley got his influence for the Hulk. It was from Jekyll and Hyde. Now, take that and then go into the creator of Jekyll and Hyde, and he'll tell you that it was a demon. So, if you want to argue with that, go into the source, please. Now, we also have a ton of characters in here that just represent different things. The Ant, Groot, the crazy genetically modified raccoon that loves to steal and murder, and all this stuff. These are just things intertwined. But again, Vision, he is another thing that you need to pay attention to, because this thing has been in the comics for a while, and in science fiction, the story of a machine that comes to life. Something that gains sentient to being self-aware. All of these things are always in your sci-fi, in the Terminator, and all these things there, and that's what's being built in the background right now. But we don't have time to get into that in the show, so we're going to stick to this, and now we're going to get into the Force. Most people, when they hear the Force, they're thinking about Star Wars, which rightfully so, because they're talking in Star Wars is talking about the demonic force, witchcraft, the right hand path, the left hand path, white magic, black magic, the chi, the yin and the yang, the secret, the 48 laws of power, and all these sigil magic, chaos magic. All of these things mean the same thing. I'm laying this out so you can understand that on the good side and on the bad side, all of them are using demonic power.
Exactly.
Okay? So once you understand that, you'll see how much of a deception this is when it comes to whose side are you on, Jesus or the devil. I'm not saying that you can't watch a movie, but be careful how much credence you give these characters and how much you get into loving them so much it can become idolatry. And if you look up the term idolatry, you'll see that it's about an infatuation into something. You're very passionate about it. Okay? What happened in one scene later on is the Guardians of the Galaxy meet up with Doctor Strange and Spider-Man and Iron Man, and they're scuffling, and Peter Quill has Spider-Man in a grip, and I think it's Doctor Strange that says, "Who is your master?" Peter Quill says, "Who am I supposed to say, Jesus?" And the theater breaks out in laughter. But I'm sitting there like, wow. How many kids are going to take this in and make fun of this on the basketball court when they're referencing the movie? What am I supposed to say, Jesus? You know, this is subtle mind control that Hollywood always does, and they know that it's going to affect the kids more than it will the adults. The adults that are lost are already lost. Kids, they're so susceptible to mind control. So that's one point I want to talk about. Sheila or Rory?
Yeah, that poor reference to Jesus also shook me. But, you know, just look at the movie and look at how Jesus Christ is being referenced or being thrown down, so to speak, you know, and they're trying to say, come on, like you said, kids will look at that and laugh, and they will also continue repeating that. There are so many ways to go with that. And I think as Christians, we should actually stand up. That should not be in a movie. That reference would not be made. It would not be made if it was to a Muslim. That would not stand, in other words. And as Christians, we need to stand up for the gospel of Jesus Christ and tell people, or those people who are making these films in Hollywood, to stop doing that.
Indeed. And again, it's mind control. But, you know, going further, Sheila, you wanted to bring up something about Gamora?
Yeah, well, I just thought it was really interesting that here is Gamora Zen Woolberry Ben Titan. I mean, she's got Zen and Titan in her name. Of course, we all know that Yoda was a Zen master from Star Wars. So you always got kind of that Zen New Agey theme running through it too. But I thought it was really interesting that her power, now keep in mind, she's the adopted daughter, as you mentioned, of Thanos, but she's also the last of her species. And of course, her power, she's superhuman strength and agility, but she's got accelerated healing factor. And of course, we go back to this cybernetically enhanced superhuman strength, because in the pages of Infinity Watch, it's revealed that she has this cybernetically enhanced superhuman strength. But just kind of interesting that she returned from Soul World, one comic says. So you really have that theme played out, the Soul Stone, Soul World. But then I also found it really interesting with the introduction of Red Skull. You know, Red Skull in the 1940s was originally Johann Smith, a Nazi officer who founded the first sort of incarnation of Hydra, who attempts to use the super soldier serum on himself. Of course, he was horribly disfigured, which is obviously hence his namesake, Red Skull-like face. The Nazis, we know, were obsessed with the weaponization of occult objects and pursuing the Tesseract as a power source for Nazi weaponry. So I just thought that was interesting.
Yeah, and for those that don't know what happened to Red Skull is that the Space Stone, which he had, which is the Tesseract, which again, going back to the cube, the black sun, Saturn, you know, all that stuff, it transported him to where the Soul Stone was, but he had nothing to sacrifice. So he had to be the waypoint for anyone looking for the Soul Stone. So by the time Thanos gets there with his daughter, Gamora, is not really, remember, she's adopted. He has to make a choice to sacrifice the only thing that he loves. No one believes that Thanos loves anything because he's that evil and that demented. He will kill anyone, right? And so it turns out that he actually loves Gamora, and he throws her into the pit to her death. And there he gets the mystical power of the Soul Stone to carry on its conquest. And it always takes blood for that sacrifice, but Jesus was the ultimate sacrifice for us. So bear that in mind. Anything else you want to add to that, Rory?
Yes. When Thanos came to the location where he was going to meet Red Skull, I'm just going to call him. One of the things that we saw in that particular movie, or I saw in that particular movie, was that, you know, they had to show climbing the mountain, just like we did in other movies. You know, to be an ascended master, you had to climb the mountain. And what was funny, and how, the similarities, you talked about Jesus laying his life down on the hill of Golgotha. And you see how they piece together different points in the movie, how this young lady, so to speak, his daughter, the only one he loved, he took her up to this mountain to offer as his only daughter, the only thing that he loves, which is, to me, mimics Christ dying. And now we are seeing this feminist movement where someone has to die, just like in the occult world. When you make a pact, someone has to die. It has to, like you said, Chris, there has to be blood. So you're going to take an oath, you're going to do whatever you do, but someone has to die in the occult world. And this is just mimicking what Jesus Christ did. Like you said, Chris, Jesus Christ is the ultimate sacrifice. And he laid his life down that we would all be set free from sin, hell, death, and the grave. And that's what he did. That was a finished work. And he said, at the end of it, he said, it is finished. So there's nothing more that needs to be done. But in this movie, you're seeing Thanos showing kids, you know what? At some point in time, the very thing you love the most, you must sacrifice that to get ahead, to go deeper, to get stronger, to go higher. This is a very subtle but extremely dangerous and dark path that is probably will be overstepped in the movie. Go ahead, Chris.
That's an important point that you brought up, because this theme of sacrificing the one you love is apparent in different movies too, and comic book movies like Kingsman, the young man that was being trained to be a secret agent, he had to shoot his dog. And this is not the only movie that has done that. It's because he was very close to the animal. They purposely made him get close to the animal so that he could shoot the animal, so that nothing in his life would ever hinder him from carrying out the task. And he ascended, not to godhood, but he ascended up in the ranks. So anyway, moving right along, you have they're going all about after this sacrifice of Gamora, and he gets the stone that he needs, and then he's going after the time stone. So what happens is you see on his homeworld Titan, where Spider-Man and Iron Man and some of the Guardians of the Galaxy and Doctor Strange are, to meet Thanos, you see the empath. I can't remember her name right now. She says, "Does your friend do that all the time?" And what you see is you turn around and you see Doctor Strange in a yoga pose, looking crazy with his head going all over the place. And so they're like, "What happened?" And he says that he's seen all of the outcomes through the time stone. And they said, "How many did we win?" Iron Man says so. And then he says, 1. And I looked at 1.4 something million different outcomes. And it's significant to the movie, but the point is he's still using occult power. You know, he's in a yoga pose, connecting to the stone that sees through time or whatever. And anyway, so after that, Thanos comes and they have a big battle, and they're almost getting ready to defeat him. And Peter Quill gets angry because he finds out that Gamora, his woman, is dead. And from there, they lose the battle. You want to say something?
Yeah, you know, the yoga pose that was in the movie, and being able to be like a god, seeing the future. That's what it's actually saying. It's not only will you be able to, you'll be able to see the future, you'll be able to see destiny, you know, and this is what Doctor Strange was doing. Is it the first time we see it in the movies? No, not in Marvel Cinematic Universe. We also saw it in the previous movie, that when they were flying the ship, it was done in a yoga pose and being controlled by the mind. Remember that, Chris?
Black Panther.
In Black Panther. So this is the second time we're seeing that. Now we are being exposed to multiple religions simultaneously. Multiple religions. We are being exposed to witchcraft. We are being exposed to shamanism. We are being exposed to Hinduism. Gnosticism. A lot of different things are They're subtly placed in the movie. Any kid would say, hey, look, you want to pose like Doctor Strange. And, remember the young lady that said that about Doctor Strange. She's normally able to read people's minds. Remember that?
Yes.
That's her power. She can read people's minds, and she can see what they're thinking and what they're feeling, or shut them down. So she's the one that came up and looked at what he was and saying, what's going on there? Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah. So from there, skip to the end of the movie now. They're in Wakanda, but what's going on is they had a couple battles where what's called the Black Order, which is basically Thanos' goons. One's a magician, and the other ones are like warriors or whatever, and they get the task done for Thanos while he's somewhere else. They're coming after the Vision and the Mind Stone that's in his head, and they get the smartest person on the planet, which is Black Panther's sister, to try to separate the consciousnesses that form the Vision. So they're trying to get the Mind Stone out so that they could save his so-called life. Now, before I go into the rest of that, didn't anyone find it strange that no one is pushed back by Scarlet Witch having sex with a robot, even though the sexual stuff wasn't in the movie, but it was implied?
Yeah.
No one found that creepy, that she's in love with android or whatever you want to call it, artificial intelligence. This is the stuff that's going on in the background, folks. People are building these robots for you to fall in love with. The AIs people are already falling in love with on their phones and all this other stuff. This is reality. You might not see it in your reality, but it's out there already. And this is being put in the movies, and it's been in the comic book for decades now. So I just want to hit on that point real quick. Anybody want to say something about that before I go on?
Well, right in that particular scene, one of the things that came to mind again was this. When this so-called witch or demon was there, and with the other gentleman, the other demon that was there that was tall, and they said, well, you can't break through this force field, this barrier. And you said, are you willing to lose all of this? And she says, we have blood. There again, it goes back to sacrifice. And what they were doing right there, was doing a sacrifice. Listen, it doesn't matter how many die. We don't care about how many died. We have the blood, and they just charged this particular force field, and they're being wiped out, and it does not matter. It doesn't matter. So I looked at that and I said, wow, look at this. That's one of the things that most people don't understand. You follow Satan. He doesn't take your life for anything. You will be sacrificed. You will die. That's one thing that stood out in my mind. I made a mental note of that, and how they were you saw the amount of blood that was going on. And then on the Wakanda side, one of the things that you saw were the same men that are and they're making that sound. But something that a lot of people gloss over on this, if you ever gone and seen, I'm going to use a name here that you guys might not know. Junkanoo is actually, you'll find them in the Bahamas, in Jamaica. They use drums and instruments and they work themselves up into a trance. And once they work themselves into a trance, then they just move and do what and you see this thing. This is another theme that's in the movie that people don't understand. They're saying, ooh, 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 but it's working yourself up into a trance. Right. So there's so many different elements, so many different levels that are going on there that are astonishing. The second role, or the main roles that we saw there, were two women. One, when I looked at the woman from Thanos' overlord, that was a demon. Also, when you go on the Wakanda side, the women that protect the king, it's women. Women are, according to scripture, are the weaker vessel. Women they're able to rear children or have babies, but these women are different. They're warriors. They're bold. They are now the top of their game as far as skill and all these other things. And in the movie again, you saw husband and wife on the Wakanda side saying they're ready to battle for the king. In the last movie that they had, the man had to bow to the woman. Feminism. It's woven throughout the movie. It's woven throughout the movie. And I could go on.
Yeah. And then just to go back to those tribes, the one that you're referring to, they worship gorillas. The Black Panther tribe, they worship, obviously, the Black Panther goddess. Her name is Bast, but that's for another time and explanation. But moving right along, you get to a point and I skipped a lot of details because it'll take too long to explain, but we have Thor come into the picture near the end of the movie. He was on a dying star because he lost his hammer in the last movie, and he's recreating something that is going to be more powerful than that, but it's still infused with magic, and it's able to summon the power of the Bifrost, which is basically a way to open dimensional portals. So they form this axe, and Groot, sacrifices one of his arms. He cuts off a limb and grows another one to make a handle for this axe hammer sort of thing. It's very powerful, and it wields the power of Thor. And also, because Thor is a title, not necessarily the name of the character. And they transport themselves to Earth to interrupt the battle and help to defeat the forces of quote unquote evil. So in between all of that now, we're getting to the juice now, where you see Scarlet Witch is the only person that's powerful enough to destroy the stone that's in Vision's head, because they don't want Thanos to get the last stone, or any stone for that matter. And so before she does that, she comes out into the battle, and there's these gigantic wheels that are just pummeling people on the battlefield, and she takes 3 of them and just hurls them up in the air and then throws them back down. And and everybody's like, where was Sheila the whole time? The power that she wields is very massive. If you read the comics, you'll know what I'm talking about. And for those that don't know, Storm, even though she's not in the movie, she's a witch too. Just want to put that in there. But anyway, you go there, now she's trying to destroy this gem, and she actually gets to do it. However, Thanos has already got the time stone, as we talked about before, and now he comes through a portal. He looks like he's defeated, but he had the time stone, so he reverses time and plucks the gem out of Vision's head, and he dies. Well, it seems like he dies. I'm not going to say that he's definitively dead. And then Thor throws his axe into Thanos' chest, and then Thanos said, "You should have went for the head," right? Because basically Thor was trying to make a point that I told you're going to answer for this, because he killed Loki in the beginning of the movie and beat up the Hulk, and the demon Hulk wouldn't come out anymore when Bruce Banner was asking him to come out throughout the movie. So anyway, he does the snap. That's what it's called in the comic books. It's just a snap, and no one knows what happens, and he disappears into a portal. Before I say what happens, you're going to see him talking to Gamora. What that is, she's probably inside of what you call the Soul Stone, and that is like a pocket universe. Something exists within inside of that, a place, and you could put people in there if you want to. So from what the directors have said about it, it seems like she's in the Soul Stone. But what I want you to pay attention to, if you've seen the movie or haven't seen the movie and want to go see it, is that she's under a Shinto temple. So this is sort of like he's on the astral plane. He's astral projecting, and the stones brought him there because he remember now he has become omnipotent, so-called, because only God is omnipotent. And this dude was really omnipotent. He would have saw every move that was going to be made after that, and in the next movie, whatever. That's just conjecture, whatever you want to call it, it's speculation. But anyway, in the next couple of scenes, you see.
No, she didn't. One second, Chris. She did say, he's saying yes. And all along throughout the movie, when he encountered somebody, he says to them, "You don't know the amount of sacrifices I've made today." So, giving up a life is also, they're telling you how I got here, how I was able to amass or achieve this power. Someone had to die. It plays throughout the rest of the movie because he said that to Scarlet Witch.
Right. Now, the end of the movie is this is the stuff that got people choked up in the theater and now in the comic books you don't see this necessarily in the original comic books, but here you start seeing people vanishing like they're turned into dust, sort of, particles. And the first one to go is Winter Soldier. He's basically like Captain America. He's a genetically modified being. And then you see Groot and Falcon. You see Black Panther go. You see Star-Lord go. You see Drax go. You see Doctor Strange go. And then you get to Peter Parker, which for some reason they kind of delayed his because everybody else disappeared quick. And he's like, Mr. Stark, I don't want to go. And it gets all emotional. But, Spider-Man dies too.
When Doctor Strange came he said like something to the effect, "This is the only way."
Yeah, it was the only way. Yeah, that was the outcome he saw. But he's alluding to more. He's alluding to more. He saw more, but obviously he won't see it to the next movie. So what I want to bring out to everybody is that this is a story about the rapture. They're not saying that it's a story about the rapture, but I'm going to tell you that it's a story about the rapture. And that's the feeling you get if you're a Christian and you, no matter which position you're in, pre, mid, post, doesn't matter what position you stand on, this will kind of make you feel like that. And I think most will agree with me, but let me prove a point. Now, in the original comic, Odin, Thor's father, Odin's son, he's wearing the ceremonial eye patch of sorrow, and he's meeting with the lesser gods that people worship, the Indian god and the Hindu god and the Aztec god and all these people. They're called the Sky Fathers. And he says, half of my people disappeared within the twinkling of an eye. That's from 1 Corinthians 15:52, where it's a reference to the rapture. It says in 51, it says, listen, I tell you a mystery. We will not all sleep, but we will be changed in a moment, in the twinkling of an eye. That's straight out the Bible. It's a reference to the rapture. And what you see in the end credit scene, you see Nick Fury and the lady, can't remember her name now, that helps him, his assistant. They disappear too, but right before that, he calls on another superhero. And you see helicopters crashing into buildings, cars. This is the same kind of imagery you get from the rapture movies from the 90s and early 2000s.
Yes, and the car that smashes into them, that stops them, they said, there's nobody in it.
Right.
So you're like, whoa,
yeah,
what's wrong?
Exactly.
All of a sudden, the people are disappeared. What's going on? And the helicopter above their head is flying out of control. What's happening? So it gives paints that same picture of the uncertainty of the next movie, but it gives you the picture of the rapture.
Right, exactly. And even though the rapture isn't about half the universe being, taken away, it's not even about half the planet being taken away. It's gonna be a significant amount of people, but it's not gonna be half the planet. Trust me on that one. But also, this alludes to what some people say that could happen. I don't believe this, but I'm telling you what's in the mindset out there is that there will be an alien false rapture. Okay, now this goes into ufology and all this other stuff, but again, this is an allegory about God or somebody becoming God or a God, rapturing people out of the earth, out of the universe, wherever they're at, and we don't know what happened to them. We're going to be wondering, what happened? Why is my grandma gone? Why is this gone? Why is this happening? And that brings forth a what? New world order, a new way of thinking, one world religion. All of these things that we keep talking about in these shows. This is alluding to that. The next movie might not, and we don't know where they're going to go with it. But as of now, that's what you've just witnessed. Sheila?
Yeah, well, I'll tell you one thing I witnessed is, and I've read these. So I've read a lot of Helena Blavatsky's writings. I've read a lot of the stuff that she gets into. She wrote a book called Isis Unveiled. We know she founded the Theosophical Society, but in her most popular work, she talks about unlocking human potential to be a superman. This idea of the hidden race, the Ariosophy. I mean, Hitler's Vril had this whole obsession with these crafts. And, one of the things she says, though, and I thought this was shocking, because Thanos said this verbatim. He said, life, thought, progress, liberty, and independence. And that is an actual sentence straight out of Helena Blavatsky's book. Now, she goes on to say, Lucifer is the Logos, the serpent, the savior. It is Satan who's the god of our planet. He's the one true God. I mean, whether it's theosophy, Ariosophy, Hermeticism, high-level witchcraft, the occult, the New Age, it just goes on and on and on. They're all inseparable. They all hate God and they all hate the Word of God, and they're all committed to the one world order, which is funny. The first scene opens up with, the one world tower. And so it just is really amazing how these themes are woven throughout these movies. And I just thought it was interesting that these Infinity Stones. Remember, Chris, I was telling you, Thanos' glove where he's got these Infinity Stones, it reminds me of an ephod. It almost has this kind of the same color stones and stuff too. And I thought, isn't that so interesting? Because as a garment, the ephod is referred to in the priestly ordinances as part of the official dress of the high priest. So I just thought it was really, really interesting. They kind of wove some stuff in there. It just really reminds me of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Sheila, I'm going to give you another gem. And this is strictly from the comic books, people. This is not from the movie, okay? In the Infinity Gauntlet series, there's a person called Adam Warlock. Adam Warlock, at the end, he gets the Infinity Gauntlet from Thanos and his daughter. And before that, he was crucified by a guy named Man-Beast. In the comics, he's been resurrected multiple times. But he is a representation of a false Christ. And he gets the Infinity Gauntlet, and he says to, Doctor Strange and a couple other people that go into the world and tell them that I'm a God that can be trusted.
Wow.
So this false Christ gets the omnipotent power of God and tells his disciples that have seen, that have heard, that have touched, that were there, just like in the Gospels, to go into the world, tell them the good news that I'm a God that can be trusted. That can't be refuted. That is in the Infinity Gauntlet story. And see, again, this is just secret knowledge that people, the average person, won't know. And these people continually say, even today, that the average person is stupid. They're not the initiate. They're the goyim. They need to be, lessened, get rid of them. It'll be us. It'll be the technocrats. We will be the ones at the top of the echelon. We will be the Elysium, the ones out there in space, while everybody down here is, being enslaved. So this is their mindset. And this was put into the comic books through young Jewish writers that had nothing to do with God. Alan Moore, he's one of the person that was into, he's called Dark Magician, and he's into all of this pagan witchcraft, and he writes books like the Watchmen and some of the Batman series, and he came up with the DC version of Doctor Strange. What's his name? I can't remember his name right now. But he basically lays out to you what mind control is, what witchcraft is, what a spell is. It's not potions and stuff like that. It's to spell, to speak it. Constantine. Constantine is what I'm talking about here. Constantine is one of the characters that he made up. And it just goes into Swamp Thing and all this stuff. But anyway, like I said, he's the kind of dude that he tells you on camera that this is what a spell is. So when you see the stuff that they're doing to Trump right now in the media, it's a spell. Put it out to you and you believe it, and then your mind is controlled, changed. That's a spell. That's what Hollywood does in these movies. They take things and put it into the scripts, and it's looked over by somebody, whoever it is, whether it's the CIA or somebody else, and then they put it out to you, and it changes the consciousness of the public. That's what Alan Moore said it will do, even through commercials.
I remember
and
that.
Satire.
He said that himself in an interview, and he says it's not like hocus pocus. He said it's the way you speak, the words that you use. Am I correct? It's something like that.
Yeah,
I remember that.
And that's going. Yeah, and that's going back into NLP, the 48 Laws of Power, all these things, The Secret, all of these things are the same thing, people. None of it is different. The Force, all this stuff I laid out before, it's all the same thing. Okay? Some of us use the technique, but we're not using it knowing that it's something, some sort of force we're wielding. It's just the way we speak. So in the hood, we would call that game, the way we talk to a woman and we can get her to, go to bed or something like that. It's the same technique, but when you really read the materials, you'll see that it's much more darker than what you think. And it's basically the ultimate levels of mind control. And this goes into MK Ultra and all that stuff too. But Grant Morrison, like Rory was laying out before, he is in contact with spirits, just like Alan Moore. And they give him the stories to write, and he got famous off of it. And he's one of the top comic book writers. I don't know too much about Chris Claremont, but I believe he has a lot of influence from Aleister Crowley, because the X-Men symbol is taken off of Aleister Crowley's Mystery Babylon. The woman that rides the beast, Aleister Crowley did a symbol that's dedicated to that. And the X from X-Men comes off of that symbol. So it's a lot of occult influence into this stuff, a lot. But again, it's, you can go from NASA to mathematics to comic books to movies to the occult to different sciences, and what you'll find out is so many different people got occult knowledge from all of these demons. Trust me, you won't fail to reach that point.
Well, and a lot of the unknown forces of nature, like the elementals, exploring alchemy and the sciences, the psychic phenomena, the Eastern religions, the Buddhism, Hinduism, Vedas, Zoroastrianism, Shintoism, all of that is also veiled in this, which is really just a spin-off of Hermeticism, which is divided into alchemy, astrology, and theurgy. It's the black magic. Kabbalah is woven into every one of these too. Isn't that weird?
Yep. I mean, I'm telling you, you won't run out of material to read with this stuff. It goes far and wide. And some people say that all of this stuff leads back to Babylon. But I think it even reached even further back into the antediluvian world, the days of Noah. And that's where we're coming full circle, where Jesus said before he comes back, it'll be like the days of Noah. And we have no idea. The only thing we have that's concrete that we could say yes is that there were Nephilim, there was violence and, marriage and all this stuff. But there's so much more that we don't know. And I think God kept it that way for a very good reason, because all of the stuff coming up with AI and robots, drones, you would have never thought that stuff in Bible prophecy before this decade, this new millennium. And now it's seen that it's been there the whole time. Daniel was told to close some things up and it'll be opened up basically when man can understand. And John was told to just, no, don't mention it. And trust me, this links right back to the comics too. So, there we have it.
Well, the stage is really being set. Like you said, all of it is this theme, I think, Chris and Rory, as you guys know, the forbidden knowledge. These guys are always trying to bring back these gods, open spiritual portals, gates, the veils, bringing back, the Tower of Babel was about the gate to the gods, the demigods, the Titans, the Atlanteans. It's all the same mishmash. I mean, even in Enoch, the archangel guides Enoch to the secrets and mysteries of the universe. They revered Nimrod. They revered Hermes and all these other demigods. What do you think Hitler was doing with the Lebensform, backbreeding to the Nephilim? They're really acclimating the children for these things to be very, hey, if demons appear on the scene, well, it's no big deal. I've seen that creature before in some movie.
Yeah, and this stuff is ubiquitous. Before you wouldn't see this stuff in your your T-shirt stores and on clothes and everywhere. Oh, you see all of this occult material now. It's everywhere.
Yeah, do you know what was really creepy? I was in a Vancouver store last weekend and my son was buying this particular brand, and on every one of this brand, it's got a 666 on it. And I said, there's no way I'm buying you that. But every one of the shirts had the all-seeing eye, some reference to the Illuminati. Chris just said a good word. It is ubiquitous. It is everywhere. There's an intensification of all of it. And listen, now, Rory and Chris, you guys have a show. Tell the folks how they can subscribe to your YouTube, give out your website, and tell folks how they can tune into your amazing program.
Oh, thank you. Yes. It's don'tletthemburn.com, and you can reach us on YouTube. Same thing, Don't Let Them Burn. So like, subscribe, share. Sharing is the best thing you could do. That's how the message gets out. And you can reach us on almost any social media platform, DTube, and that's a new platform, Twitter, Facebook, all that stuff. Just search for us, and we'll be the first result that comes up. So if you want to check us out, that's how you do it.
Amen. Well, I'll tell you guys do some great videos. Now, I just want to plug this one video you guys did because I thought it was incredible and it's really relevant. Now, remind me if it was a 1 or 2 part. I think I recall watching a 2-part series. You did something on karate and kung fu and all that, didn't you?
Yeah. It's the spirit behind martial arts. It's part 1 and part 2, and this series basically opens you up to the reality of what we just talked about in this series right here that we did with Sheila. It's about this force that all the martial arts people use, and where we take stuff from the actual masters, what they say, not what we're saying, what they say, and also we get into Dragon Ball Z and other fictional stuff. Go ahead.
I gotta say kudos, because even there was things I didn't know in that, and I thought, good job, guys. not to say I know everything, but I've read so much stuff. I thought, boy, it was just very well done. So good job, you guys.
Yeah, thanks a lot. But it's the Lord, it's the Lord guiding us to where He wants us to go. So We just got that. Anyone that could check it out and share. And, it's all about Jesus, first and foremost, not just information. So it's about setting the captives free, the mental control, and the spiritual entrapments out there. After the research and looking at thousands of hours of videos and reading books and stuff, because we are so disconnected from history and a lot of different, things, and especially a lot of Christians are reading their Bibles and don't know how to really disseminate the information that's in there. They're just soaked in a reality that's not really real. It just seems real. It's so superficial. And that when you get more into the spiritual stuff, then you start to see another dimension of what's really going on, especially when you are injected with what Jesus Christ gave us, the power that he gave us. That's when you really start to open up, because the Holy Spirit will definitely guide you. If you share this with people that you love, be diligent and patient with people, they'll come out of that spell through Jesus Christ.
Rory, any final thoughts?
Yes. Just like Chris was saying earlier, what's happening today is that young people, young and old, we're being saturated with so much information. It's not that the Bible, the Word of God, is not real. It's real. But people are being bombarded with so much information. It's, well, hey, yes, I know the Bible. I know this. I know that. And they have that superficial information is out there, but nothing of depth. And the only thing that will stand the test of time is God's word. And the only thing that can set people free is God's word. And that's what we stand on. And that's what we're here to share on our channel, Don't Let Them Burn, is that people can be set free through the word of God.
Amen. That's it right there. You ended on a perfect note. Thank you guys so much for coming on the program. You guys do fantastic work. I really appreciate your ministry. And hey, I want to have you both back on to do an expose on video games. Boy, parents are really going to be shocked. So I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking to have you back on real soon. Thanks again for coming on the program, guys. God bless.
Oh, definitely. We'll be on here.
Folks, that was Rory and Chris from Don't Let Them Burn. The information is linked below. Hey, don't forget, tomorrow is the launch of the new and improved Sheila.media. That's www.sheila.media. Go check it out. Let me know what you think. And we have a wall-to-wall bunch of amazing guests. I'll tell you what, June is going to be jaw-dropping how many awesome guests we have, starting with tomorrow. Mark Taylor is on the program. June 1st. Right out of the hopper in June, it's Mark Taylor. Check it out, folks. Thanks for tuning in. Good night and God bless.